rotate the
No,
device.
that's the time.
I'm not saying,
No, it's showing us silence, isn't it?
yeah, but if it's rotated that way, it said rotated. It
Mm.
says you have to rotate the device, so I don't know why this isn't working. So I just have to stand up this way.
Okay.
Um,
Well, they won't get both of us in the shot.
we're
Well,
live right now.
oh,
Hello everybody, this is the Trifinator here. I've created this live for two reasons. First reason is because we're officially 10 years into my homeschooling experience. I started homeschool on February the 19th of 2013. And it's been a pretty good experience these past 10 years. And I wanted to share some tips on how to provide that same experience for your children to give them a good childhood in a way that is different from public school. Now, this isn't to smash public school or make it seem bad, but it's to give your child a learning experience that, you know, that will help them learn better if they're not learning good in public school or if they want a different experience. The other reason is because I had a viewer ask me for some tips because her son is being removed from public school. So I asked my grandmother and she gave us some tips, and me and my mother have come up with our own. So, you want to go first?
yeah. Thank you for having me, Trace. And we're combining some of his grandmother's tips with our own. My mom started his homeschool journey when he was in the second grade, and we decided to remove him from homeschool because we just felt like there was more in him that wasn't being pulled out in a traditional setting. And so we decided to go into the homeschool process. And it's been a great journey. The thing that I loved about homeschooling Trace the most is that he's always been very eager to learn. And I know you can't see me fully, some of that is intentional. I'll let you look at our host here to make it easy. But our first tip would be research and know your state guidelines and requirements for homeschooling. It is a big feat to take on, and so you don't want to do it haphazardly. You want to know what to expect and what the expectations are for your state. Texas is a great state to homeschool in, but we called the Board of Education, and then we also called some Texas homeschool groups, organizations that helped us to research the requirements, finding out what courses you're required to teach, what your level of education needs to be to teach, and what the withdrawal process is if your child is already in public school. So we probably should look at the camera, or so our video presence will be better. What's our second tip?
Alright, so our second tip is don't try and duplicate the traditional school experience. So, you know what that is? I did when I did homeschool, I did do the writing and the math and stuff like that. But one thing about homeschool, the purpose of homeschool, you don't want to make it feel just like public school if that's the reason that they're being homeschooled. About how we learn in life outside of school. We learn our lessons through trial and error, if not always sitting in a classroom and writing stuff down. We learn through life experience. So what I would suggest, try to make the learning experience about like real life skills. Like instead of maybe, and I'm not saying don't do math like writing down, but maybe take your kids like to the store with you and teach them how to count change in addition to the paperwork. Or pyramids instead of just, you know, watching, reading about it and watching videos. Incorporate some of that real life into it as well, which brings me to my next tip.
Well, can I elaborate? Do you mind?
Yeah.
To elaborate on what he's saying, which is an awesome point, you don't want to try to duplicate the experience directly. In meaning that when Trace was in the second grade, when we brought him home, we were trying to do everything just like he was experiencing it in school. We tried to copy the schedule. We were ringing bells, and he had a bathroom pass. You remember that?
You put boys in one bathroom and girls in the other
Yes.
bathroom.
We were really trying to duplicate the experience from just the aesthetics and the schedule. And then we realized, someone told me this who had homeschool experience, you're taking him into this experience so it will be yours. The purpose is not to try to mimic verbatim what he was doing in traditional school. Now, I do want to say that we did have to follow, the requirements. He had to have certain subjects, including civility, and, community service was a part. I will say, if your student is coming from public school or traditional school into homeschool, there is a grieving component. Even though Trace was excited, we never planned to homeschool, but it was something that we found he really thrived in the non traditional environment. But when he first came home, he did grieve the normalcy that he was used to. Although he was excited to be home, it was different. And so I'm glad that we did allow that time, that we kept the schedule so that he could transition. And then we kept some things we felt were important, like a chalkboard. He was in second grade, so we had a brightly colored painted room. We did want to make sure what we were providing was age appropriate for his learning, so that he was still acquiring the skills, color and number association and things like that.
Good news. We had two people on there for a second. Now we have one person. That's good. We're getting a crowd here. So back to our third tip. Have young kids watch PBS Kids and take notes if they're old enough to write. That's what I used to do when I was 9 or 10. It helps them learn through. It helps them have a little bit of that book smarts, knowing how to take notes, and it also helps them, it's like fun little cartoons for them to watch, so it doesn't really feel like they're learning, but they are. Well, they feel like they're learning, but it's like entertainment. So shows that I watched Arthur when I was younger. That helps you with like citizenship and morals, right from wrong. If you're looking for math, I recommend Cyber Chase and Odd Squad. Cyber Chase teaches math and a little bit of science like multiplication and fractions. A little bit of algebra for Cyber Chase to kind of get your child started. Odd Squad is more basic math. Now, if you're looking for English, you have Word Girl, which helps kids ages 5 to 9 with vocabulary, but also mixes with lessons in there as well. Now the next tip, have a curriculum. I guess I already said that. Connect kids with others through homeschooling events so they won't lack social development. Now, I did not lack social development, but there are some kids that might not have a lot of friends in their neighborhood. So maybe like see if there's like I went to like a skating program on Tuesdays in the morning, and that helped me reach out to other children. So just look around in your area wherever you are.
Yes, he makes some very good points. We also realize that learning takes place everywhere and all the time. Would you agree? You can make every experience a learning opportunity, whether you're at the grocery store, like he said, going to the zoo for science. We eventually started a garden.
Oh yeah, I definitely recommend gardening.
Yeah, which was horticulture. Cooking is a great way to learn measurement.
Oh yeah, and
Yep,
fractions.
and
Yeah.
fractions. Yeah. Another tip that is going to be very important is to find a curriculum that you want to use. There are all kinds of curriculums. You can buy them, pre put together per grade level. We started out with K-12, which was, I don't know if we can say that on here, but which was a great program. It had workbooks. It also came with a online component. Then and then we also went to half price books and bookstores and found different workbooks. So we supplemented the education. We
Yeah.
found great books at the Dollar Tree. We found little history books like Johnny Appleseed and
And we read The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. To Kill a Mockingbird is good, like maybe for Black History Month if you're trying to, you know, educate your kids. But to be warned, don't choose books that are too mature for your child. To Kill a Mockingbird, I would read it first, to make sure that your kid would even understand what he's reading. And you don't want to scare them. I remember learning about the Titanic when I was 10 and I couldn't sleep. So if needed, you might have to kind of make the information a little more childish depending on your child. I do not want to get removed because I don't want to get canceled, become a part of cancel culture because I told you to show your child something that resulted in them having to go to therapy. So choose wisely.
yeah, well, you make a very good point. You do want to make sure that all the information is age appropriate. And that's one of the debates with homeschool versus traditional, what your children are being exposed to. But you can create your curriculum based around the requirements of math, science, English, just to name a few. Also, you don't have to break the bank for curriculum, especially in their younger days in elementary. Find one that's affordable, that's reasonable. Make sure that it's something that you like. Here in our area, we have a homeschool store, so you can use the books, bring them back. They sell them at a discounted price. So they have a lot of resources, and you can create a curriculum that works well for you. As he got into high school, we went to a more of an online learning program that, we're not here to promote programs, but we enjoyed it. He's finishing up his high school time with an online program as well, which is great. Our fourth tip: find homeschool groups, co ops in your area, and mentors. Connect with other people who have gone on this journey ahead of you that can give you advice. I know when we first started homeschooling, although many families do homeschool in Texas, it was weird, wasn't it? When we would tell people, when they say, "Where do you go to school?" Sometimes when you say we homeschool, they kind of look at you weird, maybe at
They do. I
first.
never noticed.
You didn't notice? Well, I noticed that a few times that people are like, "Oh," but then once we found our tribe and we connected with other people who homeschooled, it was a great feeling because it was more normalized. So we joined a few associations, and then we realized this is a community that we can be connected with and be a part of. And then they also offer social homeschool groups where you can go do play dates, go to do field trips in groups with other homeschool students.
Oh, that reminds me that you said field trips. Do you remember the day we went to the what was it? The science? Yeah, we went to the science museum
Yeah, really.
with a couple of homeschooled
Yeah,
children.
yeah, that was a great experience. We've had a great time homeschooling. It's opened up opportunities for travel, and even learning about the 50 states and capitals. The biggest part of it I think I've enjoyed is the application. Like you were saying, if you're learning about government, we went and we would go down to the courthouse. When we went to West Virginia, you actually went to the Capitol, which they do in public school. But we were able to create field trips that aligned with what you were learning. Not to belabor the time, the fifth tip, you already mentioned the social interaction. So we have research and know your state guidelines and requirements. That's very important. In some states, you have to test in the third, sixth, and 11th grade, their state testing requirements. Number two, don't try to duplicate the traditional school experience, but be mindful that your child may grieve, what seems normal. So you've got to make their new normal very engaging and find other people who are doing the same thing, whether you chose to homeschool for religious reasons. Your child may learn better in a homeschool environment, which I think was our situation, especially when you were younger. But we're excited that you're going to be going to uh, community college to start and, being on campus. Number three, find a curriculum or create one using resources and books. Know the objective for each grade. And you can do that by connecting even with public school websites. What should your child know at the end of this grade? What are the learning objectives? And then match up your curriculum. Of course, if you find a pre made curriculum, then it's going to make sure that you're getting everything. We did Bible in our curriculum. Um,
Don't forget when we would go buy newspapers and read the news articles, we would turn the news on and watch it.
mhm.
But again, the news isn't always flowers and dancing. So you might want to check it out first to make sure there's nothing horrific on,
Yeah.
depending on the age of your child.
That's very important, making sure you're exposing them at a level they can understand. My mom was a special education educator for how many years?
I think 20 or 25, we have to ask her.
Yeah, I'm thinking it was more like 30 years. So she started his homeschool experience, and what would you say she was a stickler for as a teacher?
A stickler for good writing skills. She wouldn't let you get away with poor grammar. If you said something wrong, if you said like, we ain't got no bread, she'd say, we don't have any bread, say that, and she'd make you repeat it
Yeah,
the right way.
yeah, she was a wealth of knowledge. Fourth tip, find homeschool groups or co-ops in your area. Mentors, there are all kind of homeschool groups. There are a lot of websites for that. Trace took Spanish on site. We found just different programs, whether you're in homeschool or not. He was able to take Spanish. He did basketball lessons. But find out what your sports teams are like. Organized sports, you can also be a part of that when you're in homeschool. So, and now I think in the past, 10 years, there's a lot of growth in homeschool now. It's not as foreign. Of course, after COVID, everybody was homeschooling, and so we weren't the oddball. And then fifth, as Trace mentioned, and I mean, he's the host, but I think we're going to wrap up here soon. Provide social interaction for development, and you can even do that. He's in a game night with another on,
Out school. We got out school.
yeah, with another online program. So he's with other high school students. In some states, you can do dual education. In your 11th and 12th grade, you can actually start taking classes at your local community college. We've gone to some events at the community college. That wasn't the route that we took, but that is an option. And then finally, Trace Nader, is that your name here?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna wrap.
Oh,
It's
no.
time to wrap up.
Oh, well, no, I was just going to say, finally, have fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, have fun. Remember, school is, yeah, there's writing and tests and grades, but remember, school is, that's not the main focus. The focus is, I mean, yeah, make good grades, don't fail tests, but the focus is to learn. Don't be so caught up in, I want to get an A or a B that you don't remember anything you've learned. So,
Yeah, promote critical thinking, problem solving. There's a lot of independence that
oh,
students
there it is.
students can learn in homeschool. So I think we're ready for the big wrap up. I think you were going to tell them if there's anyone who watches the replay and you have more in-depth questions, leave
Oh,
them in the chat.
well, yes, we're gonna wrap up here. Um, if there, thank you, Mrs. Traverso. I want to stay professional, but yeah, if you watch this and you have any further questions, put in the comments, and I will try my best to answer them. Um, and just before I wrap up, we're getting ready to say goodbye. But I have a book coming out for my subscribers. I have a book coming out called, right now it's called Tracing the Strep Throat Pandemic. The title may change. Should be out by the summer. So, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And, I'll update you on that when it's done. Happy President's Day.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for having me. Well,
Well, you
oh
have
no.
me. I'm your guest.
No, I mean, thank you for coming as well.
Oh, yes. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much.
God bless y'all and happy schooling.